What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I know the CMA Awards were this week. I don't have a recap video on them for you, but Jelly Roll's speech hit me in the feels.
I don't know where you're at in your life or what you're going through, but I want to tell you to keep going, baby. I want to tell you success is on the other side of it.
I was like feeling kind of down that night, and boy, did that motivate me. If you want my opinion on like Morgan not winning any awards and Lainey getting Entertainer of the Year, I have a video on TikTok. It's like an explainer. But I'm not going to be talking about the CMA Awards today. Instead, I'm going to be talking about two albums that are really kind of big albums late in the year. One by Cody Johnson called Leather, and one by Chris Stapleton called Higher. I know Aldean's was also a big album, but I honestly haven't even listened. I swear to you, it's not like I don't stand by Jason Aldean because he did try that in a small It's really not that. I just, I've been kind of unmotivated by listening to Jason Aldean for years now, and it's just when there's other big albums to listen to, those get priority in my mind, and yeah, you get it. Anyway, let's start off this video talking about Chris Stapleton's new album, Higher, because I really want to talk about it.
If you want a cowboy, white horse,
Right off the bat, I gotta say, I think this album is excellent. I loved it, but it's really different than other Chris Stapleton albums. It's different than Starting Over. It's different from Traveler in that this one really is a record that feels like you are meant to just play it from front to back and kind of vibe out. It is so sultry and smooth, and it's laid back. There's some more fearsome moments like the lead single White Horse. You get a little bit of that on South Dakota. There's like some of this kind of southern rock where he actually rocks out, but generally it just kind of gives this bluesy vibe to the album. And I hate using the word vibe. It's such a lazy word in music criticism, but I'm gonna use it. The album's a vibe. Now, Chris Stapleton produced this alongside Dave Cobb and his wife, Morgan Stapleton. And throughout the album, you can hear her background vocals just adding such life and texture to a lot of these songs. I always heard way back in the day that Justin Timberlake was actually really interested in making a Morgan Stapleton album when he reached out to the Stapletons. Then obviously that led to the CMA performance that blew up Chris Stapleton's career, but I'm still waiting on that Morgan Stapleton album. I know they got a lot of kids to take care of right now, but one day I'd love to hear it. Something I noticed all throughout this record is the extremely simple writing. I love super evocative, poetic writing with tons of specifics, and that's not really this album. You get a lot of lyrics like, we could lose ourselves just like lovers do if you trust in me like I trust in you. Or even on It Takes a Woman, simply, whenever I'm broken, honey, you heal me. When I'm in the dark, you are the light. When I get lost, you know right where to find me. When I have my doubts, you make me believe. It's very plain spoken in that way. It's not trying too hard to say a lot of stuff. And honestly, where that might annoy me on other records, Chris Stapleton's voice is just so damn good and delivers everything in such a cool, kind of soft way on this record that I don't mind it at all. I'm like, man, I want these super universal lyrics that just go down easy.
whenever I'm broken.
Someone on my Instagram commented that it almost sounds like John Mayer made this album, and I totally get what he's saying. Like, you really just want to soak in the guitar, you want to soak in his voice, and I want to soak in the falsetto on this record because apparently Chris Stapleton has just been hiding this amazing falsetto that's all through these songs, and it's so different than the kind of gruff vocal where he's like screaming out something on Arkansas or Parachute, and I quite like it. The title track, Higher, when he just keeps going literally higher, and he's like, your love takes me higher. Oh my gosh.
So much
And then it makes it all the more exciting when he actually does go into that kind of gruff, rockier yell thing later in the song. Oh my, that song is so great. The other one I really noticed it on was on the song called The Fire. That starts with this kind of groovy little guitar part that almost felt like Dave Matthews Band or something. I was like, is this Crash? What is going on?
I watch your life.
When he goes into his falsetto on that song, that was the first moment on the record where I was like, damn, what is happening? This is so weird for a Chris Stapleton album. He has some pretty cool collaborators on this record. The first track, What Am I Gonna Do, is a co-write with Miranda Lambert. I was kind of mind blown that the song called The Day I Die was a co-write with Carolyn Dawn Johnson. I mean, raise your hand if you remember the song Complicated.
It's so complicated.
But But I really like both those songs, and I've just noticed over the years, the same way I like solo writes, I tend to like writes that just have one other person as well. You just get some different rhythms, some different ideas, some different vibes on those tracks. And in general, if there's a theme on this record, it is just devotion to his wife. There's some horniness on this record. You know, he's like, I love you, I want to be with you, I can't stop thinking about you, kind of throughout it. And you can see his, tear-jerking Instagram post that just says, for Morgan. I've already mentioned a couple of my favorites. The Fire, I loved. Higher, I loved. I think It Takes a Woman has got to be in there.
It takes a woman.
Man, when Morgan's vocal comes in with Chris's, it's just such a great blend, and that song is so beautiful and so devoted. And it just is that laid back feeling, a relaxed vocal. It's so cool. The complete opposite end of the spectrum would be something like White Horse, which is almost an outlier on the record, but I'm glad there's a little bit of pulse to it and that it kind of hits a little harder. That song is so ADD. You've got that crazy intro, then the awesome guitar lick, and the vocal goes wild on it, and it's kind of been this sleeper. I feel like when White Horse came out, didn't make much of a splash, and then social media has fallen in love with it. And then the totally opposite vibe is probably my favorite track on the record, or certainly one that hit me the hardest the first listen, called Weight of Your World.
Give me your darkest hour. Give me your deepest.
Now, whereas most of this album I feel like is a lot more influenced by Southern rock, this one feels much more influenced by pop and R&B. It's kind of conventional in the context of this record and feels really straightforward. Although the steel adds such a different vibe than your standard kind of adult contemporary song, but it's really this lyric where he's saying, take the weight of your world and lay it on me. That is, it could be romantic, it could be him being a good friend. It doesn't even specify in the song, but it's just talking to someone that he cares about and is saying like, I'm here for you. And that whole part of like, give me your darkest hours, give me your deepest fears. There's no way to not be moved by that. And from a sequencing standpoint, I thought there was a real poetry to following that up with Mountains in My Mind.
Still can't climb the mountains of my mind.
Where it's kind of the anxious song where he's like, I'm still climbing the mountains in my mind. Like, I'm still crazy. After this whole thing where he's like, you can lay it all on me. He's like, I'm not doing well secretly, but it's just this kind of quieter moment to end the album. Now, I'm not going to talk about every single song in depth, but some other moments that really stood out to me were the bass line in Think I'm in Love with You was so cool. And the strings are almost giving that song Bond vibes, and then there's this crazy breakdown in the middle of the song. Instrumentally, probably my favorite track on the album. The Bottom is a super like kind of country hooky song, although I got almost confused. There's so much happening in the chorus where it's like, her memory's in the bottle and the bottle's in your hand, and then your left hand writes the cigarette in your left hand, and then there's a lot happening. It's like a parable. It's like when Jesus is like, the kingdom is like a mustard seed, and you go on, and I was like, what's going on? Then in the final chorus, they take out some of those lines, and I was like, oh, I get what you're saying. I like this song. Crosswind is a kind of cool trucking song about a guy that's just driving his truck, and he's like, I'm white knuckling it to feed my family. And there's almost this storm metaphor going with the crosswind going through his truck. Only dud on the album for me is probably South Dakota. I just felt like it kind of is a bluesy vibe. Maybe they wanted something a little more upbeat, but it kind of just goes nowhere for me.
Headlights are not ringing in my head.
I just read my note over there. I wrote vibey, lazy critic term, but monotonous. So, that was my only criticism. And even that, I gave a 6 out of 10. So there's really no bad songs on this record. I think it's super strong. It's super different. I really feel like you're supposed to just have like a dinner party, throw that on the vinyl, and it'll be kind of a classic. There's something feels very classic about this record, and I love seeing Stapleton go quieter, falsetto-y. Love it. I did a live listen on TikTok to this, and someone in the comments was saying that Stapleton gave up whiskey, and you can feel it on this record, and that would make sense to me. This is a little bit tamer of a record, but it doesn't feel like lamer of a record, which sometimes is the accusation when people make a more sober album. Also, not for nothing, Hits Daily Double just posted their projections for first week sales, and this is set to be a top 5 all-genre debut, around 80 to 90,000 copies in its first week, which is huge in the country world, where every album seems to be flopping lately. That's a really big number. That's there with like Jelly Roll's Witsit Chapel. And for reference, Jason Aldean and Cody Johnson both just started with 30,000 copies in their first week. And that was a better than average result compared to most albums lately. So the fact that he's going to maybe triple that, this is a big album. And speaking of Cody Johnson, let's touch down on Leather.
She talks about the future like she's flipping through a magazine.
Sometimes on this channel, I feel like I end up saying such similar things about artists every time I talk about them. And a lot of country artists are really consistent, and I would say the same about Cody Johnson. I think the word I always use for him is solid. Like, it's super country, it's super quality, and it's solid. And that's definitely how I would describe Leather. Cody actually has no rights on this whole record. They are all songs that he has picked, and it's a very songwritery record. If you like kind of classic country songwriting that uses lots of metaphor and simile, you'll like this record. Some of the hooks are like, that's how you'll know a cowboy's made of leather. And it's kind of unpacking all these leathery qualities of cowboy life and the sturdiness that those men have.
Mama says he's just flesh and bone. The girls say he's a roll.
It's a little bit Hardy-ish in that way. You know how Hardy will write a whole song about a screen or about the color red? I think Cody's drawn to a similar kind of writing. But my favorite kind of object metaphor on the album has to be the closing track called Make Me a Mop.
Make me a mop. Clean up the messes.
Partly just because I was like, what a weird title. I'm obsessed with the title, Make Me a Mop. I immediately went to Bing Image Creator and started generating images of Cody Johnson as a mop. Pretty good, I must say. I'm getting kind of good at AI generating images. But this song is actually so beautiful. It kind of hits me in the heart. And he's like, he wants to soak up all the lessons that he needs to learn. And as he's saying that, he's comparing himself to all these other tools that he could be fashioned into if that's what he needs in order to grow, love people better. This one includes Alan Shamblin, who also wrote I Always Wanted To, which was the one I was obsessed with on Cody Johnson's last record. Really beautiful, really weird song. And I like weird. Weird is a compliment. For me, though, the standout is definitely Dirt Cheap.
Little girl, it used to swing right there.
Is it a comma song? Yes. And if you don't know the term comma song, that's a thing I say where the title of the song ends up being split up in the end to reveal a new meaning. So whereas Dirt Cheap might mean not very expensive in the beginning, by the end of the song, he's like, you can't buy that dirt cheap, as in this land is really valuable to me and I have all these memories and I've watched my family grow up here and I can see them and this is like where I'm from and I care about this dirt. Now, a well-placed comma song, it's undeniable in its effectiveness, and this one, a solo write by a guy named Josh Phillips, is so effective. What a gorgeous, gorgeous song. The second I heard it, I was like, favorite. And it's so Cody Johnson. It's like family and faith foremost and super country and super tearjerkery, and man, it just makes you want to go hug your dad. The whole album is not tearjerkers. You've got songs like Work Boots.
So come on, work boots. We got a little work to do.
Which is a really fun song. That's Texas is pretty fun. And I know the song Jesus Loves You is divisive, but it tells this really crazy revenge story, and I quite liked it. And then my other favorite was one called Watching My Old Flame, and it's pretty sad, and shocker, I'm drawn to the sad ones.
It's been over for a while, and we both know it.
I loved this song for a lot of reasons. A, it's gorgeous, but B, the writing on it is my favorite kind of clever writing, where I don't even think I noticed how clever it was the first 4 times I listened, and I still was so moved by this song. But the hook of the song is, it's the hardest thing watching my old flame go out. Because he's talking about seeing someone that he used to love, and she's on a date with another man, and it's just like killing him inside, and he remembers their relationship. And it was that moment where I realized that go out has a double meaning, that I was like, damn, this is a well-written song. He's seeing his relationship get extinguished, and he's seeing her literally go out on the town and continue living her life. It's good. You know it's good. Now, whereas I said Chris Stapleton's album felt like you just put it on and you let it play, I kind of don't feel that way about this record. There is something that it feels a tiny bit distant to me. Logically, I listen to the songs, I recognize all of them as good. As an album, it feels like a lot of really classic, good songs, but maybe it's just missing a touch of that quirkiness or unusualness that make Cody Johnson a unique person that would make me connect a little bit more to it. I was arguing with my friend Jack about this the other day. He was like, come on, you snob. Like, he's like the new George Strait. George Strait wasn't writing his songs. And that's when I had to, give my hottest take that I try to keep to myself, which is like, I just merely like George Strait. Kind of for that reason. Like, I've always been more drawn to the weird sort of observations of Alan Jackson, who wrote his songs just a little bit more than George Strait. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Check Yes or No. I love Amarillo by Morning. I love George Strait, but I'm just saying he gets me to that 8 out of 10 level, not that 10 out of 10 level, the way he does for some people. But it's hard to be super mad at a mainstream, super solid, super country record. It just leaves me a touch bored sometimes. Like the same way that I was mind blown when Chris Stapleton had that crazy guitar part on This Fire, or the Bondy strings on his record, and then he was going into his falsetto, and I was like, man, he's pushing himself. This record just feels super solid. And I love that, but it just creates like little 1 ounce of distance between me and Mr. Kojo. But his vocals sound great. All the instruments sound great. What am I going to say? It's a good record. But yeah, those are just my kind of loose thoughts on Leather and Higher and, wow, 2 ER records. Let me know which one you think is better, and I'll make another, there's another ER, video where sooner than I made this one. I got merch linked down below. I have like a new print on demand setup, so if you need a Christmas gift, you can get it. I'll be back with more videos very soon. Bye, y'all. Love you.